Welcome. I'm Jim, Jake, that you're here for. Insurance. So we need to have a talk, kind of a serious talk, honestly, about insurance inside of Star Citizen. Now, at current, it's very basic, and therefore it's really simple to explain and understand. If for somehow you're not aware of how insurance in the game works, right now, essentially, you have a ship, you go out, ship go boom, you've either died and you've come back to a station, or someone's brought you back to a station, and now you just go up to a terminal, a kiosk, you find your ship that went boom, and you do a claim process. It tells you, hey, you're going to have to wait X number of minutes or hours if it's a big ship, and then you can get your ship back. If you wait the entirety of that time, you can get it back with no cost to you. But if you would like to expedite it, it'll cost this much money to get it sooner. That is the claims process at current. Now, I know at current, it brings the ship back with whatever modules you had fitted to it. I know they've already stated that that is not going to continue on into the future, that it will have a base state as the ship comes. And when you reclaim the ship, it will be given back to you in that base state, not with modifications that you've made to the ship. You're only getting back the hull as it is, not as you've made it, which I'm completely fine with. But at the moment, other than losing what's on your person or stored items or cargo aboard that ship, there's no consequences to having to claim a ship. I think the only time I've ever felt the slightest bit upset at losing a ship was I had a Cuddy Red full of dead player bodies that I'd been collecting. It got destroyed. But again, I wasn't upset about the loss of the ship. It was over the contents inside that ship that I lost. The ship was back in my hands just a few moments later, and I was off running missions like I had never lost it to begin with. Now, as I get into the problem, I'd like to just take the briefest of moments to say that I played a game called EVE Online for many years. Now, I knew EVE had a robust economy, even before I got into the game. But if you tried to tell me that nearly everything that happened in EVE could at some point or level be connected back to its economy, I would not have believed you. It's only now, after having had those years worth of experience, that I can look back on it and I would agree complete with that statement, that the player-driven economy in EVE is really what has kept that game alive for 20 years. And I can hear you now, Jim, this isn't EVE. You know, I agree with you. However, of all the games that I've played, which is far more than I would care to admit, EVE is by far the closest in scope and content to what Star Citizen has been slated to become. And that's great, because despite all the faults within EVE, it's had a lot of great things going for itself. And you might be saying, oh no, I don't think they want to turn this game into EVE, and that's fine. I don't believe that they do either, but they are certainly looking at aspects of that game and bringing it into Star Citizen. Two things from this last CitizenCon. First was when they were classifying the three different types of space they wanted to have, which was high sec, low sec, and null sec. They didn't call it that exactly, but that's exactly what it was. It was a high security area, a low security area, and a zero or null security area. The other thing that they mentioned that I was really excited for, of all the great things we saw at the last CitizenCon, because this has been one of the best CitizenCons that I've witnessed in many years. But the most exciting thing to me was not all the new tech they showed. It was one statement I heard made towards the final part where they were talking about Outpost. And CIG made the claim that they want a purely player-driven economy. Now, if you're not aware, for the vast majority of items in EVE Online are created by players. Very few items are seeded. And the items that are seeded tend to come down to skill books, which hopefully we don't have to worry about in Star Citizen. I would love not to have any skill related items. I think I think the skill ceiling in Star Citizen is going to be high enough on its own that blocking things behind a skill point system really, for the most part, just won't be necessary. But the other thing that is seeded on the market through EVE are the base tier modules. Subjectively, the worst modules you can get in game, but they're abundant and they're typically pretty cheap. There's another class of items that get dropped that can only be looted, and then there's the items that are only produced by players. And I won't get into it too much because it doesn't really matter for the focus of what we're talking about here, but there are some parallels I will draw later, and that's the only reason I mention them now. Now, I don't want any misunderstanding. We want a player-driven economy. We need a player-driven economy. There's something fun and enamoring about sitting in the hull of your ship and just taking a moment to think about all the players it took mining at the minerals, hauling the minerals, refining those minerals into materials, hauling those materials, combining those materials into a whole through some type of industry, and ultimately selling or trading that ship to a player. There's something very grounding just knowing that players have spent time and effort in the pursuit of more credits for themselves where they can make a combat ship with no idea of how it's going to be used one day. Just the idea that someone can actively produce a ship that might one day kill them, it's an interesting cycle of events. But I'm finding it difficult to understand how LTI, or 10-year insurance, which let's be honest is just LTI, factors into a game where the devs want a player-driven economy, meaning the players are the ones creating the items. What incentive can miners and haulers and industrialists and traders have when all I have to do is press a claim button and have a ship that no one was responsible for making placed back into my inventory, into a game that took zero player participation to create? Isn't a player-driven economy. At that point, it's really more of a pay-to-play system than anything else. Now, I've spoken about this at length with many other players that my personal beliefs is that CIG intends to have a dramatically longer free ship claim. Now, whenever I mention this, I get a lot of pushback. I get laughs, I get outright, "You're crazy, they'll never do that, they can't do that, I paid for this ship." And I'm not saying that they can deny you use of the ship. What I am saying is it's only reasonable that there be a certain amount of loss, a certain setback for when you lose a ship. Now, longer timers make sense, and there are a near never-ending amount of reasons you could come up with to support that. It can be used by CIG to balance between similar ships. Let's face it, there's a lot of overlap with ships right now, especially in the starter series of ships. When I first subbed to starcitizen, I, like so many others, got the Aurora. Now, even to this day, I still really like that ship. I love the design. I love how it felt. However, there are far more similar ships that simply outclass the Aurora for usability. It is, by all measures, a starter ship. If you offer me as a new player the Titan or the Aurora, I can't think of a single reason I'd choose the Aurora other than for reasons of nostalgia, that it was the first ship I flew in game. Now, if you told me the Aurora and other starter ships would have a reclaim timer of, say, 15 to 30 minutes, and that a Titan was, say, 2 or 3 days, well, my decisions based on what I want to do could drastically change off that. If I'm just looking to traverse from point A to B, I don't want to risk losing a ship that has a longer claim time than that. I could 100% see people choosing the Aurora over the Titan to negate loss. They're constantly talking about the need to maintain our FPS weapons and vehicles if we want them to function properly. There's not a lot of way to force a player to consider maintenance on the hull of a vehicle if I can just strip the components off, reclaim my ship in 10 to 15 minutes, and replace all those comps. There's zero reason to enforce any type of ongoing maintenance on a ship if they plan on leaving a huge glaring loophole to that mechanic in game. There isn't much other way to make ship loss feel like loss. Me losing a carrack and waiting 30 minutes for a claim isn't really any sort of loss. I'm right back to where I was just a few moments ago. I truly expect that, not if, but when I lose my Kraken, for instance, that in order to get a free LTI claim back on the ship, I would expect that claim process to take anywhere from 30 to 45 days for a non-expedited, free-to-me claim. And I hear you now like, oh, that's ridiculous. 45 days to get a ship back? Well, let's think about it. That's a capital carrier. That ship has a tremendous amount of force projection. What are the actual repercussions for losing that type of ship? Let's take a moment and think of a scenario. Talk about a real world scenario that, based on the mechanics we're aware of now, could occur in game. Say you and your org mates have an outpost, planet, moon, it doesn't matter where. And me and my org mates, being the space scoundrels that we are, we do piratey stuff. It's what we did all through EVE. We lived in wormholes and we enjoyed fighting. That's what we liked. We liked finding people that either didn't want to or wanted to fight, and we would fight. That was it. So let's say we come across your org and your outpost. So we bring our fleet. Part of that fleet is my Kraken, loaded down with many of my org mates' ships, their vehicles, their components, our resupplies. We set up a blockade of your outpost. Now, I don't know what the ultimate end of our blockade is. I don't know if we're trying to take over your outpost or if we're trying to just interfere in whatever it is you're doing there. Let's just say that it's a huge inconvenience to you. You try to come and fight us, and for days we maintain this blockade. So let's say we've either misidentified you as a weak target and you bring your org in and destroy us, or let's say you pay a mercenary corp to come in and destroy us. Regardless, the outcome is we're dead, you're not. How long of a reprieve should you and your org have from my blockade? Should I just be able to go back to a station, press claim on my Kraken, my org mates do the same on their ships, and a day or two, we're back? Where's the loss? Where's the realism there? Where are the repercussions for me and my org for overextending? Personally, I think you should have a pretty long reprieve from us. The only way I think we should be able to come back and blockade you again is if we do it in different ships. Ships that were not the ones that we just lost. We should not be back at your doorstep 24, 48, 36 hours later with the same assets that you just blew up. We shouldn't be flying past the wrecks of the ships that you just destroyed with the ships that we just claimed. That's not how this game needs to work. If the ship I have has LTI on it, all the stored vehicles my org mates had LTI, we shouldn't be back to the exact same place we were 24 hours later. It should be a huge setback for us to lose those types of assets. It should give us pause to sit, mull over, hey, what did I do wrong? What could we have done to prevent or mitigate that loss? Should we go back? Is it worth going back? It should cost us more than just a few hours worth of wait time and logistics to recover where we were at. How is any org supposed to claim an objective held by another org? They can just die, reship a few times in the hour. At that point, it's no longer about who has the better fleet comp or the better strategy or better offensive or defensive positions. It's just who wants to respawn tank the other org longer. Maybe I have a better work schedule. I can just keep coming at you until you have to log. Me having the luxury of time is neither emergent or honestly even fun gameplay. When we miscalculate and whelp our fleet into your home, the cost of re-engagement for me and mine should be, it needs to be high. Encounters inside of Star Citizen, for the most part, should be win or loss. Such environments make the loss and victory so much more enjoyable. Pulling off an op that your org had no business of being able to achieve is a huge high and a huge boost to overall morale. Likewise, blowing an operation that was yours to lose is a truly punishing event, and it tests the core structure of your org. Can y'all pull back from this? How much did you risk? Are people going to leave? Was it such a monumental blunder that members are now questioning the leadership's decisions? But if everyone could just die and reship, it doesn't matter what leadership did. It doesn't matter if they made a poor choice, because there's ultimately no consequence from the loss. There is ultimately no loss. Right now, fly down to a popular bunker or POI on a planet. What do you see? I can tell you what I see. I see anywhere from 7 to 8, sometimes so many ships that I can't even land, just abandoned, just laying down there. Not blown up, just people went into the bunker, they died, and rather than come back and get the ship, it's so much easier just to reclaim the ship. Ships at the moment have no value to retrieve. Why would I respawn in a hospital, get someone to join me to fly back to the surface to retrieve a ship I could just reclaim in 7 minutes? I'd spend more time reshipping, traveling, and bothering a friend than it would literally take me just to press claim and spend a negligible amount of credits to expedite. This works fine in the current alpha status. I honestly even think that claim times are a little bit harsh right now for some ships. But when it comes to 1.0, which is all I'm referencing, ship timers should not be as low as they are now. And the expedited claim, I think you should have the ability to expedite a claim without waiting at all. I click claim, I should have the option to click expedite, but I think it should be a pretty linear system where the amount to expedite it, let's say it's a 7-day claim, and the amount to expedite it immediately is just full replacement. If I wait 3.5 days, it's half replacement value. If I'm down to just a day left, it should just be 1/7 of the price of the replacement value. I think that's a pretty fair and reasonable thing to do. It should be more of a loss to me than just losing the modules that I had on this ship. I also think they're probably going to have to do some balancing with the modules that come on the ships initially. I don't really like the idea that some ships come with military level equipment on them. I think ultimately they're going to have to create a few more tiers of components, so beyond the industrial, civilian, and military that they have currently. So you can have crap level, decent, good, great, and then kind of a oh my god, this is amazing. And the prices of them all vary based on supply and demand. It would make more sense to me that ships come with leaning towards the crap side of modules. So when you claim a ship, you would get a completed hull filled with the lowest tier of components, just so you have something to fit to the ship, like I said, basic shields, weapons, quantum drive, etc. So if you want to PvE or PvP with the lowest amount of credits possible, you can. You're just sacrificing a great deal of efficiency to do so. Same thing with industry ships with regards to upgrading tractor beams or mining heads. You're sacrificing risk and credit investment for efficiency. You're flying around in a new ship as a new player, running low-level missions. The ship has a significantly reduced amount of respawn time. Now, you're welcome to disagree with me, and I've got no problems being wrong. However, I don't really think I'm too far off base with this. I can recall back when Chris Roberts himself claimed, when talking about Death of a Spaceman, that he wanted your character to be able to die. And I mean dead. There would need to be some sort of your character dying and becoming a different character altogether. They are apparently looking for some sort of serious consequences to loss and death, and I just can't see how that doesn't extend to your ship. The whole idea of Death of a Spaceman is, let's say you're down on a planet in a firefight and you get injured, and the nearest help is 30 minutes away from you. They want there to be some serious consequences about just respawn tanking everything in the world. And if they're going to do that with your character, I can't see how they don't do that with your ship. How would you handle having ships in the game that are produced 100% by players just being handed out? Why would anyone pump hours into making a ship to sell on the market when 80% of the players have 10-year or LTI on their ships? Who's going to buy the ships you just made? Now, there's some ways they could get around this. Maybe all insurance replacements will be produced by the players, and the payout for producing the ship is equivalent to the amount of demand on the claims for that particular hull. This would keep people from just dumping all their produced goods to overpriced NPC contract. Maybe once a claim is ready to be delivered, the game buys out the least expensive hull available on the market and gives that to a player. I don't know how all of these are going to be handled or solved, but conversely, I don't think CIG does either. This opens up all sorts of other questions though. Can you sell your used ship? Can they be sold with any types of components other than what came with the ship standard? Can the ship be sold in any condition, or does it have to be repaired to full? Can I buy a disabled ship? Will there be differences between buying a pre-owned ship over a new one? Can I sell a ship that I have LTI on? Because if I can sell the ship, LTI has to go with it. If LTI doesn't go with the ship, I've just sold a ship that I can now claim again for free. The only real problem I have at this moment is that all of this is being alluded to. The ship insurance is all pretty vaguely defined and largely subjective to change. I don't understand why it's not more directly addressed, and maybe it has been at some obscure meetup or dev post that I've just not seen. They should be far more transparent about what insurance really is to us players when the game is done. My guess is that they don't really know. So why cause an argument for a game mechanic that they really can't speak 100% to? But if you can't explain what it is, why use it for promotional advertisement on Warbots? People should understand and know what they're buying, because I think a lot of people have a misconception that what they're buying is an unlimited amount of those ships in the future game. And while I think vaguely they are, it's not nearly as robust as they believe it's going to be. So yes, you can buy a Gladius for $90. However, I don't think you're always going to have that Gladius available to you. Let's say I have a hull E, a capital freighter. Let's say I see a very lucrative contract to haul, or a very lucrative trade run to make. Now, I'm currently in Station A, and the trade route is from B to C. They're neither where I am. I'm not buying anything where I am. I have to get my hull E from where it is currently over to Station B and then on to Station C. So I'm not transporting anything from A to B. All the transporting will happen from B to C. My transport is currently in the wrong place. Now, most of us are like, well, that's a pretty simple solution. You just hop in the hull E, fly it over to Station B, and get the stuff. But it's not that simple. The hull E is going to be slow. Based off what we know about jump gates, not all jump gates will allow all ships to traverse through them. So let's say for a small ship, Station B is just 1 or 2 jumps away and maybe 30-40 minute traverse at most. But for the whole E to get there, I have to go through the large jump gate network. Let's say it's going to take me 2.5-3 hours to get there. That is a lot of gameplay to get to a station. If LTI operates as it does now, why wouldn't I just get into a small ship, fly through the small gate, be at the station I need to be at 30 minutes from now, and just start a ship claim timer? I'll just go ahead and pre-buy all the goods so that it doesn't disappear from me. I've locked them down, and just wait on my ship to spawn. I can go play another game or watch a TV or go to lunch or dinner or whatever have you. I don't have to put in the effort to get my whole E to where I need it to be. I'll just abuse LTI that I have on the ship. You could come up with endless number of scenarios, and everyone that I've played through in my head say that a short claim timer as they are now is an abusable system in the final game. As I said with the Kraken, the whole E is a capital freighter. If that ship gets blown up or destroyed, those types of ships can make dramatic changes in the economy. Now, I'm not saying that the claim timer should be 6 months on a ship like that, but I'm also not saying it should be 6 hours. And they could absolutely tweak as they go the claim timers on these ships if they see that no one's using this ship because the consequences of losing it are too drastic. They can absolutely dial back a claim timer on that type of ship. But, I mean, you start talking about ships like the Kraken, the Polaris, Javelin. These are big ships, and them being destroyed is going to change the local arena significantly. You can't have the game just throwing these ships back out there constantly. There's no reason to use anything less. You'll get to the point of the game in about 2 to 3 years after launch where only new players are flying new ships and small ships. Everyone else will be flying whole E's and whole C's and Merchantman and Krakens and Javelins and Polarises. There's no loss in losing them. Why fly a smaller ship when I can just fly a huge one? Even solo. Why take a fully crewed Merchantman out when I can just take it out solo, and if it dies, I'll just get it back in a couple days or hours? It's no biggie. No biggie. There's not going to be a lot of incentive to fly anything less than the biggest ships in the game, even poorly flying them. So I'm not going to drone on about this because really all I'm doing at this point is coming up with more and more scenarios to fit my argument. But take a moment, comment, let me know what you think. Please, comments like "you're wrong," great, feel free. But what I'm really looking for is a conversation. Why? Why am I wrong? I understand we paid for these ships. Kind of, because what we really paid for is the development of the game, and we were giving a whole based on the amount that we pledged. So there are seemingly loopholes available to CIG. They can absolutely give us LTI, a lifetime insurance on a ship, but it doesn't mean that we have immediate lifetime access to that ship. But like I said, at this point, I think I've made my case. I'm open and interested to see what people think and have to say about this. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap up the video at this point. So again, thanks for joining me. Thanks for taking the time out and listening to this. Again, my name's Jim, and hey, hope to see you in the verse.